If you had asked my parents who was going to be successful, they would have answered without even looking at me. My younger brother, Ethan, they'd say. He's the smart one. I stopped arguing with that label years ago. I'm 34 now, and looking back, I don't think they ever meant to be cruel. They just believed success looked a certain way. Ethan had the degrees, the polished job titles, and the confidence to walk into a room like he owned it. I was the quieter one. I liked fixing problems, building things, and working with my hands. To my parents, that meant I had settled for less. Growing up, the comparisons never stopped. If only you applied yourself like Ethan. Your brother has such a bright future. You should ask him how to make something of yourself. Eventually, I quit trying to prove them wrong. After high school, I skipped college and took a job with a small commercial maintenance company. It wasn't glamorous, but I learned everything I could. Plumbing, electrical systems, HVAC, property management, you name it. While my friends spent weekends at bars, I picked up extra shifts and saved every dollar I could. 10 years later, I wasn't just fixing buildings. I understood how they were managed, how contracts worked, and where owners wasted money. That's when I came up with the idea to start my own maintenance company. It wasn't some flashy tech startup. It was practical, profitable, and something I actually knew how to do. I spent months writing a business plan. I had estimates, projected expenses, potential clients, everything. The only thing I didn't have was enough money to buy the equipment I needed. I wasn't asking my parents for a gift. I asked for a loan, $35,000. I even offered to sign paperwork and pay interest. My parents invited me over for dinner to talk about it. For a moment, I thought they were actually considering it. Instead, my dad folded his hands across the table. I don't think this is a wise investment. My mom nodded. A business like that is risky. I slid the business plan across the table. I've already lined up 3 commercial clients. Dad barely looked at it. That's not the point. Ethan leaned back in his chair with a little smile. If you want my advice, he said, people like us shouldn't gamble on businesses. Stable jobs exist for a reason. People like us. That stuck with me. So you're saying no? Dad didn't hesitate. We'd rather keep our savings secure. I forced a smile. I understand. Then Mom added something I'll never forget. If Ethan ever wanted to start a company, that would be different. His education gives us confidence. No one said another word. I thanked them for dinner and drove home in complete silence. That night, I crossed borrow from family off my list forever. Instead, I started smaller. I bought used equipment instead of new. I rented a tiny warehouse on the edge of town. I worked 18-hour days. Sometimes I'd finish a repair job at midnight, sleep 4 hours, then spend the morning knocking on business doors asking for contracts. It wasn't glamorous, but slowly, clients came back. Then they referred other clients. Within 3 years, I hired my first employee, then 5, then 12. I never posted about it online. I never bragged. Honestly, I figured my family wasn't interested. Whenever we got together, the conversation always circled back to Ethan, his promotion, his new condo, his vacations. Meanwhile, if someone asked how work was going, my mom would politely smile before changing the subject. I got used to it. The only person who seemed genuinely curious was my grandfather. Grandpa Walter rarely spoke during family dinners. But one afternoon he asked if he could visit my office. I expected him to stay 10 minutes. Instead, he spent almost 3 hours walking through the warehouse. He asked thoughtful questions about every piece of equipment. He introduced himself to each employee. Before leaving, he quietly pulled me aside. "You built this yourself?" I did. He looked around the building one more time before smiling. I always thought success was easier to recognize when it was noisy. Then he patted my shoulder. But sometimes the strongest foundations are the ones nobody notices. A few months later, he passed away peacefully. The entire family gathered for the funeral. Everyone shared stories. Everyone cried. Afterward, life slowly returned to normal. At least, that's what I thought. Until nearly a year later, when my phone rang on a Tuesday morning. It was my mother. She sounded different. Not angry. Not disappointed. Scared. "Can you come over tonight?" she asked quietly. "It's important." For the first time in years, I heard uncertainty in her voice. I had no idea that by the end of that evening, my parents would ask me to save the very house they once said proved Ethan was the successful one. And they had absolutely no idea that someone else had already made a decision that would change all of our lives. When I pulled into my parents' driveway that evening, I noticed something unusual. Ethan's car was already there. So was my aunt's SUV. For a second, I wondered if I'd forgotten someone's birthday. But the moment I walked inside, I could tell this wasn't a family gathering. No one was talking. My mom looked like she hadn't slept in days. Dad sat at the kitchen table with a stack of papers in front of him, staring at them without really seeing them. Even Ethan, who usually had something confident to say, kept rubbing the back of his neck. "I'm glad you came," my mom said softly. I took a seat across from them. "What's going on?" Dad slid a folder toward me. "It's the house." I opened it and immediately recognized the logo of a lending company. Several notices had been highlighted in yellow. Missed payments, late fees, notice of default. I looked up. I thought the mortgage was almost paid off. Dad let out a long sigh. It was. Those 3 words only made me more confused. He explained that about 4 years earlier, Ethan had wanted to invest in what he called a can't-miss commercial real estate opportunity with a few coworkers. According to Ethan, they just needed temporary funding before outside investors came in. He didn't have enough cash, so he convinced my parents to refinance their home and use the equity. It was supposed to be for less than a year, Dad admitted quietly. My stomach tightened. "You refinanced your house for an investment?" Ethan finally spoke. "It wasn't supposed to go like this. The project stalled after interest rates climbed. Investors backed out, construction costs exploded, and lawsuits between partners tied everything up. No one had actually stolen the money. The investment had simply collapsed." "And you never told me?" I asked. Dad looked embarrassed. "We thought it would recover. Instead, they had borrowed more just to keep up with payments." Then Dad retired. Mom cut back her hours. The payments became impossible. I closed the folder. "So, what happens now?" My mother answered before anyone else could. "If we don't pay the balance soon, we'll lose the house." The room fell silent. This house wasn't just another building. It was where every Christmas happened, where Grandpa Walter had spent his last Thanksgiving, where family photos stretched across the hallway. I understood why they were scared. Then my dad looked directly at me. "We need your help." Those 4 words felt strange coming from him. For years I'd been the child whose opinions didn't matter. Now everyone was waiting for my answer. Ethan cleared his throat. "I know this is asking a lot." It was probably the most humble sentence I'd ever heard him say. "We were hoping," my mom began carefully, "that maybe you could co-sign a loan." I blinked. "A co-signer?" Dad nodded. "The bank says our income isn't enough anymore. So you don't actually need money. We need someone with strong financials." I leaned back in my chair. My company had done well over the last several years. Not because of luck, because I'd been careful. I avoided unnecessary debt. I saved aggressively. I never expanded faster than the business could support. Apparently someone at the bank had noticed. They suggested asking family, Dad admitted. For a moment, no one spoke. Then Ethan looked at me. "I know things haven't always been fair." That surprised me. "I should have said something years ago," he continued, "when they helped me and not you." I didn't know what to say. It wasn't an apology that erased everything, but it sounded genuine. "I appreciate you saying that." He nodded. "I don't expect forgiveness." The room softened for a moment. Then Dad quietly added something that brought everything back. "If you help us now, we'll make it right." I frowned. "What does that mean?" "When we're gone, everything will be divided equally." I almost laughed. Not because it was funny, because it revealed they still thought inheritance was the answer. "I don't need a bigger share of the estate." Dad looked confused. "I just don't want to see you lose your home." That was true. Despite everything, they were still my parents. I told them I'd look over the paperwork before making any decisions. They seemed relieved just to hear that. As I gathered the documents, one page caught my attention. The lender's name wasn't familiar. I'd expected one of the big national banks. Instead, it belonged to a regional investment company. I quietly folded the statement into my folder. "I'll review everything tomorrow." Dad nodded. "Thank you." On the drive home, something didn't sit right with me. The numbers seemed odd. The remaining balance wasn't enormous, but the interest rate had jumped dramatically after the loan changed hands. Changed hands. That phrase kept echoing in my mind. The next morning, I asked my company's attorney, Lisa, if she could take a quick look. She called me back before lunch. "There's something interesting here." "What is it?" "This isn't the original lender." I noticed. She paused. The mortgage was sold twice. Is that unusual? Not necessarily. But the most recent sale happened only 3 weeks ago. That caught my attention. Who owns it now? I'll have to request the public filing. 2 days later, Lisa walked into my office carrying a thin folder. You might want to sit down. I smiled nervously. That's serious? She placed one document in front of me. It looks like the investment company sold a package of distressed mortgages. I scanned the page. Then my eyes stopped on one line. Purchasing entity. The name looked strangely familiar. At first I thought it was a coincidence. Then I noticed the address. It was one I knew by heart. My own office. I looked up at Lisa. This can't be right. She gave me a small smile. It is. Months earlier, my accountant had convinced me to create a holding company to manage some of my commercial property investments separately from my maintenance business. The holding company had authorized an investment manager to purchase bundles of performing and non-performing loans that fit very specific financial criteria. I had approved the investment strategy, but I had never seen the individual mortgages. I had trusted the professionals handling it. Without realizing it, my holding company had legally purchased my parents' mortgage as part of a much larger portfolio. I stared at the paperwork for several seconds. Lisa finally broke the silence. So, what are you going to do? I looked back down at the file, my grandfather's words suddenly echoing in my mind. Sometimes the strongest foundations are the ones nobody notices. I had the legal right to enforce every term of that mortgage. Or, I could choose a very different path. But before I made any decision, there was one more document in the file that I hadn't opened yet. And according to Lisa, it had been left there with my name written on the envelope. I stared at the envelope for a long moment before opening it. There was no return address. Just my name, written in neat handwriting I recognized immediately. My grandfather's. Lisa looked at me. You knew him? He was my grandfather. She nodded. The attorney who handled his estate asked that this letter stay with the file until someone from your holding company became the mortgage holder. Apparently, he left very specific instructions. I carefully unfolded the letter. Dear Nathan, if you're reading this, life has taken one of those turns that no one can predict. I've lived long enough to know that families don't always measure success correctly. Some chase titles. Some chase praise. Very few chase responsibility. You were never the loudest person in the room, but you were always the one fixing what others ignored. That's why I trusted your judgment. Whatever decision you make after reading this, don't make it to prove a point. Make it so you can sleep peacefully at night. Character is the only inheritance worth protecting. Love, Grandpa. I read the letter twice before folding it back into the envelope. Lisa stayed quiet. Finally, she asked, So, what do you want to do? I looked out my office window. I don't want revenge. I didn't think you did. I just want to make sure they never end up in this position again. She smiled. Then let's find a solution. Over the next week, we reviewed every document connected to the mortgage. Legally, my holding company owned the loan. That meant I had several options. I could demand immediate payment. I could continue the foreclosure process. Or I could restructure the loan entirely. There was one condition I insisted on. Before anything happened, my parents needed to know the truth. Not from a lawyer. From me. A few days later, I invited everyone to my office. Mom, Dad, Ethan, and even my aunt came. They assumed I had reached a decision about co-signing a new loan. Dad spoke first. Were you able to work something out with the bank? In a way, I answered. Lisa entered the conference room carrying a folder. She placed it on the table. This isn't another loan application, she said. It's the ownership record for your mortgage. Dad adjusted his glasses. I don't understand. Lisa pointed to the purchasing entity listed on the final page. My father read it once. Then again. His eyes slowly lifted toward me. This company. I nodded. It's mine. The room became completely silent. Mom looked confused. What do you mean it's yours? I own the holding company that purchased your mortgage. Ethan frowned. Wait, are you saying? I didn't buy your mortgage on purpose. I explained everything. How my investment manager had purchased an entire portfolio of loans. How I hadn't seen the individual properties. How we only discovered the truth after reviewing the paperwork. Nobody interrupted. When I finished, my father leaned back in his chair. So, you own the debt on our house? Legally, yes. Mom's face turned pale. For a moment, I could tell they were imagining the worst. Dad lowered his head. I suppose we've earned whatever happens. That sentence hurt more than I expected. Not because I wanted them to suffer. Because for the first time, my father sounded defeated. I reached across the table and slid another folder toward him. Open it. He hesitated before reading the first page. His eyebrows lifted. This. He looked at Lisa. Is this real? She nodded. It is. Instead of demanding immediate payment, I had instructed my attorneys to replace the existing mortgage with a new agreement. The crushing interest rate was gone. Every late fee had been forgiven. The payment had been reduced to an amount my parents could realistically afford on their retirement income. Even more importantly, the loan could never be sold to another company without my approval. Dad looked completely speechless. You did this? Yes. But, after everything. I shrugged. This house holds too many good memories to lose. My mother quietly began crying. I'm so sorry. It wasn't loud. It wasn't dramatic. Just honest. I should have believed in you, she whispered. I thought success only looked one way. I reached over and squeezed her hand. We all get things wrong sometimes. She shook her head. No, we got you wrong. Across the table, Ethan hadn't said a word. Finally, he looked at me. I owe you an apology too. You don't have to. I do. He took a deep breath. I spent years believing I deserved the attention because everyone kept telling me I did. He gave a small, embarrassed laugh. I don't think I ever stopped to ask if I'd actually earned it. I smiled. That's something all of us can learn. A few weeks later, Ethan surprised me again. He called and asked if we could have lunch. I've been thinking, he said. I know almost nothing about what you actually built. I laughed. Most people don't. I'd like to. So I gave him a tour of the business. Not to impress him, just to show him. He spent the afternoon talking to my employees. Several of them had been with me for years. One of my managers mentioned how I had paid everyone's salaries during a slow season instead of laying people off. Another talked about the apprenticeship program we'd started for young tradespeople who couldn't afford college. Ethan listened more than he spoke. On the drive home, he admitted something. You know what's funny? What? I always thought you were just fixing buildings. I smiled. We help people keep them running. He nodded slowly. I finally understand. My relationship with my parents didn't magically become perfect. Years of favoritism don't disappear overnight. But something important changed. They stopped comparing us. When friends visited their home, my mother proudly pointed to photos of both of her sons. Not just one. Dad started asking about my business. Not because he wanted financial advice, but because he was genuinely interested. Sometimes we'd spend an hour talking about equipment, employees, or new contracts. It was a conversation I'd wanted for years. One afternoon, while helping Dad repair an old fence in the backyard, he set his hammer down. I've been thinking about that dinner years ago. The one where you asked for the loan? I nodded. He looked away for a moment. I wasn't protecting our savings. I was protecting my own assumptions. He sighed. I believed your brother looked successful because people recognized his achievements. Yours were quieter,